What is that button? Am I recording? Okay. I just had a circle. Okay. So do you see how, okay, like the false prophets, plural, um, it's kind of like how it is today. But in the trib, it's on steroids because the word says the tribulation, all 7 years. So if you think it's bad now, the first 3.5 years of the trib are going to be far worse with deception. Right now, deception is horrible. You got these Democrats, the far left, you got the far woke and the goats, you got the apostates. Far right now is going into that. This is all deception, trying to deceive people against the foundations of Christ. But in the trib, what they're going to try to deceive you with is probably for the first 3.5 years, they're going to try to do like the Democrats are doing, and the New Agers, because the New Agers are going to think about the UFOs, right? But these false prophets, they're going to try to deceive you into looking at the beast, who is not the Antichrist yet. When he gets that deadly head wound after 3.5 years, from day one, for 3.5 years, once the tribulation begins, for 3.5 years, that beast is not yet the Antichrist, but he is Antichrist spirit. He's Antichrist everything. Just like there's a lot of Antichrist people now who are very anti-Bible, anti-Christ, anti-Word of God, okay? It's the far left. Because they want, anything that makes you feel good is what we're going to fight for. All right, so when that beast gets the deadly head wound and is brought back to life by Satan himself, that's when all hell breaks loose. That's called the Great Tribulation. So, but the first 3.5 years, they're probably trying to, it's like when a president runs for, what do they go do, campaign? It's kind of like this with these false prophets and these Democrats are doing now. They're campaigning for their cause. Oh, nasty debauchery, Sodom and Gomorrah, yay, yay, vote for that. That's what will be happening. These false prophets are going to try to get you. You might say, no thanks, I'm a Christian. And maybe they'll let you go. But they're going to know where you live. Because when the Antichrist gets indwelt with Satan, they will be coming for you. And this deception, Jesus says, do not be deceived into thinking maybe they care about you, or deceived into, maybe you'll believe their lie for a little while, but once it comes time to take the mark in your forehead or your hand and pledge allegiance to that beast, Satan, after 3.5 years, you'll have to take a mark for him. You might say, oh, no, thanks, I don't want to take that mark. Why? You say, well, because I'm a Christian. But you've been prepared for 3.5 years. These false prophets are warning you. They're trying to deceive you that the UFOs are nice, the Martians are nice, the beast is a nice guy, everybody loves him. Look, everybody loves him. And you're like, I love him too. Yeah, I love him all right. He's okay. Oops, sorry. I was twisting these legs. And maybe you're all like, yeah, I like him too. I like him a lot. But I'm I noticed this rapture probably happened. I was in church and I heard about it, but I didn't take it seriously. I didn't take my walk with Christ seriously. I lived for the world. Maybe you heard about Christ as a baby and a kid or whatever, and you accepted him, but you lived your whole life for the world, and God spewed you out of his mouth, left you in the trip. So now you're thinking, wait a minute, I heard about some rapture thing happening, and then you're hearing rumors amongst the other left behind Christians. And then the 144,000 are in the four corners of the earth. Those are called the elect. And you'll read about them in Zechariah and even in Revelation. They're called the elect. And Jesus draws them from the four corners of the world, from the earth. Those are the 10 tribes that were dispersed permanently. Judah has stayed intact, because Jesus said in 1 Kings, he will always leave the throne of David for David's sake, for Christ's sake. However, okay, so that's what Israel is right now. They're the Lion of the tribe of Judah. Benjamin, they are Judah. That's who they are. They're the two tribes, the ones that didn't get dispersed for after the Assyrians took them all off. Judah, northern Israel are the 10 tribes. Southern Israel is Jerusalem. Okay, and all of Canaan. That's part of the northern tribe of northern Israel is the 10 tribes. Southern Israel, Jerusalem, Israel right now, that's the southern tribe. That's the Jews today. They are of the tribe of Benjamin, of Judah. Okay, then when God is drawing, he needs 144,000 of each tribe. Okay, it tells you that in Revelation. It tells you in the Bible that to this very day, those 10 tribes are dispersed permanently until God decides he wants them revealed and brought back. And when he's marking the 144,000, he's going to need 10 of those tribes. So he's going to draw them from the four corners of the earth. He's going to mark them. It says the same thing in Revelation. He's drawing them, then he's marking them. In Zechariah, he's drawing them. He's the one that, now when the Ezekiel 38 happens, they're probably going to get drawn as well, but maybe they won't know who they are. And meaning they themselves don't know who they are to this very day. They probably don't know who they are. They might. There's probably a lot of Jews that don't know who they are, that they're Jews, because during some of these diasporas and stuff and wars, they would give babies up. Their babies, the Jews, would give their babies up to be raised by Gentiles. And those babies think they're Gentiles, and they're not. Anyway, so when the false prophets are trying, and then there's going to be these hidden pockets, I think, of the 144,000, because there's talk about running to the hills in Revelation. The woman gives birth, and that's Israel. Okay? And Satan tries to take her baby, but her baby's caught up. That's the church. That's the rapture, I think. I haven't gotten to this part yet. But the woman is taken and hidden in the wilderness. That's the second part of the tribulation. Israel is either going to be protected, or it's speaking about when they see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, he who understands, run. Don't take anything out of your house. You're going to, well, wait a minute. Because that also says one is going to disappear and one is left. One disappears, one is left. Okay, but anyway, I was going to finish reading it along with you. But I was thinking about it and I forgot what I was thinking and how it went. But I know there's a time, because the word, see, this is what I don't know why. When people talk about the end times, they don't put them all together. All of it. These Gospels, answering these questions of the disciples, put them together. Because if you don't, they don't make sense. That's why I've never been able to learn anything about the end times. I just stay ready. I want to be raptured anyway. It's not that, I mean, I want to serve my Lord. So I'll be ready. But I'm just saying, you can't really teach anybody. If somebody came up with you, if they had a question, because a lot of them learn this stuff and they know it, unlike I do. But they never ask questions about this kind of stuff. They just what? Accept it? Or what happens when they go and read Matthew 24 and then they got it all warpy, weird. But if you look at it like Jesus is telling them about the trib alone, because the Jews are going to be left in the trib. That's Jacob's trouble. That's who he's talking to, are Jews. But, and the Jews are the ones that are writing this book and sending it out to the whole world. So the Jews aren't reading this New Testament, but the Christians who read it, and even the Christians that don't read it, don't read the Bible. I don't know if that can even, that's an oxymoron, a Christian that doesn't read the Bible, but I don't know. Anyway, I was going over it the other night and I thought, you know what, it makes more sense like this. And then I was going over other verses in Zechariah. I'm still going over verses that come to my mind. You know, I've said this before. I'll read the Bible and then as I'm reading it, I think of, oh, that's over here. Oh, that's over there. But that's never been about prophecy. It's just about life. I'm a lay person at this eschatology. I'm not the one that knows this by heart. All these eschatologists are the ones that know it by heart. Well, then if they know it by heart, while they were reading it, why didn't they say, oh, but that's probably what happens there? I barely have read this stuff, but when I am reading Zechariah, bells go off. And they go to this, and I'm thinking, this doesn't match this, that doesn't match that doesn't jive, to one nicely running well-oiled machine. And I've never heard anybody to connect all the dots, and I've never heard anybody ask about, oh, well, what about this? What about that? And it's almost like they don't vocalize those questions on the shows because they don't go over those questions. So maybe other people have these questions, but they just don't go over those kind of questions. So this is all I'm saying. Because when you're reading these Gospels like this, and you already know Daniel, Zechariah, Ezekiel, Revelation, which I don't, but I know enough. I know some. And as I'm reading these, especially since I've read Zechariah lately, and because I know some of Revelation, meaning not by heart, but I get the gist of it. But when I read this, I can't understand it. But now that I say, since I read Zechariah, I'm like, you know what? I think this is all trib. And then I started looking at it a little closer. And in the beginning, it says right here, he sat down on the Mount of Olives. And Jesus is coming back to the Mount of Olives, stepping on it, splitting it in two. That is after 7 years of tribulation. He's not going to talk about the rapture. He's talking about the tribulation. He's talking about when he comes back at the end of the world, at the end of the tribulation on the Mount of Olives. And all this stuff, I don't care how many famines in the world, plagues and pestilences, it doesn't add, or earthquakes, it never adds up to this. Never. This is a tribulation thing. It's the beginning of sorrows, because they're not going to they're going to behead you. Now, I'm going to make, like I said, sections of videos because we're talking about Islam, I think, is Gog and Magog. And then I shared that video with you on my post about this guy 7 years ago is saying the Muslims are he's actually saying the Muslims are the harlot, the blood of the saints. They're all about beheading, beheading, beheading. That's their thing. And the harlot is got a lot of blood on her hands. And she's wealthy because she gets backed by wealthy Middle Eastern countries. Okay? And okay, so when I was reading that, when he said something, maybe it's like around 31 mark, when he said, he may not have realized what he said, but he said something about, he was talking about the beast and the harlot, and then he goes, well, even in Ezekiel 38, whatever it was, I don't remember, but when he said something, I'm like, you just said it right out of your mouth that Ezekiel 38 happens before. Because you know how you'll say something and you don't realize that you said, or you don't realize what you're saying, but you might sometimes catch it, but sometimes you don't. But I think the way I heard him, and he probably didn't even realize what he was saying, he didn't realize that he's basically saying, he proved it. You know how like you'll prove something, but you didn't realize you proved it? Well, just by what he said proves that Ezekiel 38 has to happen before the trib. Because for those 7 years, and I still am dissecting this stuff, but for those 7 years, there's no harlot giving him a hard time. There's no beast. I mean, maybe it's kind of like, God never says in Ezekiel 38 and 39 that it's some kind of a false peace. Nope. God's all over them. And I still think that it's all of Canaan. They're going to get back all of their land. Maybe some of the 12, and then the evil ones are going to be stabbing themselves. So it'll be cleaned up. But the harlot is still alive. Because just because Islam kind of gets killed off over there in Canaan doesn't mean the funder of it died, because they're not on the ground doing that. They are in their castles, right? They don't go out and do that. So, but whoever is, what according to this guy's video on the beast, it's on Revelation something, and 13 maybe. And he is saying, so you can probably read the rest of this yourself, and if you want to put it in context of what I'm saying, that it's the trib, it's the 7-year trib, and you know, but what I'm still trying to piece together is where Ezekiel 38 and 39 would fit in, because, but so far, the only thing I can think is the 10 kings, the beast, the false prophet, whoever you want to, whatever character you want to point to over there in Revelation, the harlot, they're when Ezekiel 38 happens, everyone is going to know that he is God. The whole world is going to know that God is God, but not everybody will want to say yes. Just like the Jews didn't want to say yes to Jesus, but God closed their eyes and ears back in Isaiah. So Jesus knew they wouldn't, and he wanted it that way. But I'm saying that everyone's going to know that he is God, but that's going to make them even more seething, more separation, because people who are God haters in their heart, they may not outright say it, but their heart, they hate his ways, they hate his book, they hate his lifestyle, they hate living for him. Just like now, it will start coming out. out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. So your your heart will betray you. So yes, in Ezekiel 38 when in 39 when the whole world sees the salvation of Israel getting saved from being annihilated, and all these people just all of a sudden killing themselves off, the enemy is, the whole world is going to know that he is God. But that doesn't mean they're going to accept him. But so, okay. And then you can go from there. So, do those 7 years of cleaning up bleed over into the trib? Probably. Does the Antichrist being resurrected from the dead, rising from the grave like Jesus did, does that second 3.5 years, when the abomination of desolation, like I think, when God, Jesus said, when you see that run, in my mind, they're going to have their whole land of Canaan. They're going to hear about the abomination. Well, Jerusalem will be in the midst of Canaan somewhere. So once they hear, they have plenty of land, they're going to start running to the hills. Those 144,000 are going to be strategically dispersed throughout the whole world for this run to the hills, run to the mountains. When you see on television the abomination of desolation, because it's going to be breaking news. Whoa, look, he just rose again. That's another thing about when they say he's over here, he's over there. Believe them not, because it could be the beast that got shot, and then when he resurrects in the hospital from the deadly wound, it's going to go all over the news. They're going, oh look, he raised from the dead, and we're going to hide him in this place. And then there's going to be rumors going around. Oh, I think they moved him to ICU in this hospital, and oh wait, they said he made an immediate recovery and no ICU. Okay, well, they're hiding him out over there in the closet, over in that blah blah. So that's also probably could be what that means about, because, but it says false Christs multiple, right? He says, don't be deceived. There's going to be false, for many will say, I am the Christ. Okay, so maybe that's also around the time, because there's really no purpose of saying you're Christ unless you're mimicking, pretending you're the beast, which you don't even know that you're saying that, because you don't know the Bible in the trib, because the beast hasn't been assassinated yet, or whatever happens. And then for 3.5 years, they're going to be false profiting you, trying to see if you'll come over to the, because the beast is going to be loved by everyone. It ain't Trump. Too many people hate him. So everyone, and you need to Google the verse in Revelation that some way it's worded, I can't even try to quote it. There is no way you can be deceived into going to hell. Okay? Jesus is talking about being deceived, probably where they're saying, hey, come out, let's smoke him out. Oh, he's over here, he's over there. I don't know what happened. Is this recording? Okay, it's still recording. Plus I got a phone call, but it said something like, okay, so anyway, I guess that's all. I'll come back with my next chunk, and you can, but in Revelation it says there's no way you can be tricked. God wouldn't do that. When it's talking about deceiving, he's basically meaning they're going to try to deceive you. It was UFOs. They're going to try to deceive you that you didn't miss the rapture, maybe, or deceive you about whatever. maybe deceive you about, I don't know when the mark of the beast comes. I think it's, meaning taking the mark. I think it's the second half of the trib. So the last 3.5 years, they're really going to be pushing for that mark. But the 144,000 will be schooling people. Even the angels say, do not take the mark of the beast. So no matter what the false prophets are trying to deceive you, I think he says, many shall, wait a minute. Does he say will try to deceive you? He says, oh, where am I? Well, whatever. You can pay attention to the verses. So he says, many shall come in my name and say, he says, do not be deceived. So I guess you can be deceived. But if you find the verse in Revelation, there's no way you can be deceived into going to hell for the rest of eternity. You know what you're doing when you take that mark. So what might happen is, what he's saying is, don't be deceived. False prophets are coming and they will try to deceive, or they will. Okay, you find it. I don't know if it says try or a definite will. They will deceive some. Because I can't find it, okay, right now. So I'm just saying, they're going to try or they will deceive many. And Jesus is saying, don't be deceived, okay? Because if I don't think it's deceived into taking the future mark, because this could be the first 3.5 years, and then later on in the chapter, it's the second 3.5 years, the abomination of desolation. That's where it's the second. Like I said, I'm just mulling all this over. But hey, if nobody has answers for my questions, if I looked hard enough, and I don't, because like I said, I won't be here. But I mean, why couldn't they have made it simple? Why does it have to be all twisty? Oh, well, there's a famine over here, so it's happening. Oh, there's some earthquakes. We're in the, rapture's about to happen. None of that makes sense to me. So that doesn't stick with me. But if somebody made it sensical to where it wraps and ties in with everything else, because you could say, oh, what about this? Oh, but it doesn't. Well, how did that Ezekiel or Zechariah tie in? They're not going to, I don't know. So while I'm reading it as a layperson who doesn't even know it by heart, I'm making connections that don't connect. So, and I'm connecting them. But why weren't they connected already? Even if I'm wrong about my connections, their connections don't make sense. So until somebody has some connections that make sense, they're really never going to stick with me. Okay. Whether I say it verbally in my mind or out loud that it doesn't make sense, my heart and my psyche and my spirit and my personality, just, it's a given that it doesn't make sense. It doesn't jive. So I don't remember it. I don't recognize it. And so I don't care about it. If it was something important, I would study it. Yeah. So, all right. Well, I guess I just made this part 2 for nothing. Because I'm saying just read it yourself. And I'm just making a point here, pointing something out. And when I come back and do another video, because I forgot what I was going to do it about, I probably, well, okay, I'll just, whenever. Okay, bye.